Hi, I'm Tiffany. This is Towering TBR. Today I am going to tell you about all of the Audible titles I recently bought. If you're new here, I have chronic migraines, and because of that, I cannot always read with my eyes. I use audiobooks as accommodations for how I get the stories into my head, and was really excited when they had their big summer sale and I was able to get some titles I was really excited about. I bought 5 nonfiction titles and 7 fiction. And all of these audiobooks were priced between $2 and $6. I'm going to start with nonfiction. The first nonfiction I bought was Disability Pride by Ben Matlin. It's a look at the ADA, which is the American Disability Act, which was passed in the United States in 1990, and what disability activism looks like now. I am really excited to read it, and now that I have the audiobook, I have no excuses. I should definitely get to it soon. I actually own the physical book of this next audiobook that I purchased, which was called The Bosnia List by Kenan Trebetsivic, and this is his memoir about being forced out of his country during the Bosnia War because he was a Muslim. And it's his look at going back to Bosnia, confronting the people who turned his family in, visiting the concentration camps where his brother and his father were. He has a whole list of other things he wants to do to get closure. I know very little about the Bosnian War. Hopefully this will be a very informative memoir. The next I purchased was Blood in the Water by Heather Ann Thompson. This is a nonfiction book focused on the 1971 Attica protest. Attica is a prison. There was a 4-day standoff between prisoners and guards. They were protesting because of the vile conditions that they were living in. The armed forces decided to forcibly break up the protest, killing not only prisoners but civilians as well. I know very little about this. This happened well before I was born, but it seems like a really interesting microhistory, and when I saw it was less than $5, I had to pick it up. I also picked up Mean Little Deaf Queer by Terry Galloway. I love disability memoirs. This is her story growing up. I'm excited to try a new disability memoir, and this one sounds really good. The last nonfiction book I'm going to talk about is called Unmask Alice by Rick Emerson. Back in the day, this book was pushed a lot in schools. This is Go Ask Alice by Anonymous. And it was purported to be a real teen's diary of what their descent into drug use, prostitution, and ultimately death. However, it came out that Beatrice Sparks wrote this book and that she is a well-known con woman. This was all a lie. She is a straight-laced Mormon, and to my knowledge has never experimented with any of the drugs in this book, and it was just anti-drug propaganda. She also anonymously wrote Jay's Journal, in which purported to be a real teen's journal, and goes through topics of suicide and satanic panic. So these 2 books that Beatrice Sparks wrote, but purported that these were true, Unmask Alice, the audiobook that I got, is the breaking down of finding out about the propaganda, about the con woman, and all of those details, which I think sound really fascinating. So I was glad to pick up that one. Switching on to fiction now, I was able to finally get a copy of Ruby Fruit Jungle by Rita Mae Brown. I tried reading this earlier, and I just had a really hard time reading it with my eyes. So even though this was published way back in the 70s, I think, it didn't have an audiobook until recently. And so I was able to pick that up, which I'm very excited. So now I can read this book. Another book that I have in physical form, as well as getting the audiobook edition, is The Far Pavilions by MMK. This is actually only book 1. The entire book is about 1,000 pages, and I got the audiobook for about $5, so I'm really stretching my money's worth for per page count. This focuses on the British Indian history, which I know very little about, and it's apparently a classic, so I'm excited to pick that up at some point. Not sure I'm ready for another 1,000-page book just yet. One of the very first books that I heard about on Booktube was Teach Me to Forget by Erica Chapman. This is a YA book about a girl whose sister dies, and it's her working through her grief. For whatever reason, I wasn't able to get this book at my library, and I still wanted to try it. So when I found it on sale for literally $3, I thought, I need to pick that up. I'm not sure it's a book I'm going to get into really quickly because, like I said, it's about grief, and, you got to prepare for that sometimes. If you saw my May wrap-up, you'll see that I really, really loved The Chrysalids by John Wyndham and want to check out more of his backlog. So I found 2 of his audiobooks that were on sale and swiftly bought those. The first was called Trouble with Lichen. This is about a lichen that is discovered to basically stop aging, who is in control of that basically new technology, and apparently it's some sort of feminist revolution. It sounded really good, and I was glad to pick it up for just a couple of bucks. The other John Wyndham that I picked up was The Midwich Cuckoos, and this is narrated by Stephen Fry, who I think is one of the best narrators. It's another dystopian focused on a silver object that suddenly appears, and it causes everyone to go to sleep. And when the women wake up, they discover that they're pregnant, and the silver object is gone. I think that sounds like a really interesting premise. Plus, with Stephen Fry's narration, just total win for me. I have 2 more. The first is The Wrong End of the Telescope by Rabah Alameddine. This focuses on a Lebanese doctor who is working in a refugee camp situation. One of her patients has cancer, but she doesn't want her family to find out. And so it's about this doctor and patient relationship that grows because of this secret. Sounds really interesting, and this was the cheapest. This one was under $3. So I'm really excited to give it a try. I say that about all of these. Like, I wouldn't have bought them if I wasn't. The last book I got was Pages for You by Sylvia Brownrigg. This focuses on a college student and her affair with her older graduate teacher. It's apparently a very tumultuous relationship, but I've heard nothing but praise for this book. Those are the 12 audiobooks I purchased in my recent buying binge. Have you gotten any great deals lately? Have you read any of the books I've talked about? Let's have a chat down in the comments below. Thanks. Bye.